Well, good evening. I'm George Kilpatrick. This is the United Democrats of Onondaga County, but we talk to everybody. If you're a Democrat, you're here, and we're grateful for you coming together tonight on this Monday night, the 17th of September, and we're pleased to be joined by Gail Tosh. She's seeking the election in the 120th Assembly District. We'll tell you where that affects you and where do you live. And we invite your questions, of course, as we do every night here in the United Democrats of Onondaga County. We invite you to give your comments right below, so you see where my hand is, right below there, and I'm getting the magic device that will let me read your questions, and we're excited. So let me tell you a little bit about Gail. Gail is a resident of Baldwinsville, New York, is married with 2 children, is a graduate of J.D. High School. Go Red Rams! And she also is a graduate of Empire State College. Her degree is she has a BA in social theory and structure and change with a concentration in leadership. And she's lived on 2 continents and has taught language, but her real profession right now, I'm excited to tell you, is that of a chicken farmer. So we'll learn all about that as well, and why, and how to pick eggs, right? This is really important information. But let's, first of all, Gail, good to see you.
Nice to see you, George.
And let's talk about the district and what the district represents. What's the geography?
Sure. So the district is mostly Oswego County. If you draw a straight line from Granby up to Oswego City and leave out Minetto and go all the way up to Jefferson County, that's the district. But then you also want to add in Ellisburg in Jefferson County and Lysander in Onondaga County.
Okay, so
goes out to Constantia and Redfield there on the eastern side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So it's pretty diverse.
It is. You know, we've got suburban areas with Lysander. We've got cities with Oswego and Fulton. We've got lots of villages and all the rural areas out there. So there's a real mix of difference there, diversity. Yeah.
Red Creek, I can snow. That's what I think of when I. And so Gail, tell us about living in 2 continents. Living in Europe. It was where you lived.
Yeah, I lived in Eastern Europe. I lived in a small country called Belarus, which is between Russia and Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there after the crash of 2008 when, I owned a small business. My small business didn't make it. And I had a friend over there who said, well, why don't you come teach English here? And I thought, what an adventure. And I went and
Did you have an English background?
I did not have an English background. That's what I said. I said, look, I don't think I can do it. I'm not an English teacher. She said, just come here. They'll teach you how to do it. And they did. They put me through a pretty rigorous training program. I went there 6 months before I started actually working. I learned a new language. I learned how to teach, and then I learned how to teach English. And I just really had the time of my life there.
So you speak Russian? Or?
I speak very little bit of Russian.
Right.
Dobry den.
Vodka. No. Well, so you just why did you decide to run for the 120th Assembly District?
Sure. So, like many of the people who are involved in politics right now who are new, after the 2016 election, I just thought, look, there's more I can do. Like, I'm not sure what it is. So I started getting involved, and I joined the Democratic Committee, and I started talking to people, and I sat down with a friend, and he said, we really need people who are going to take on incumbents, who don't have people running against them. That's what we need from Democrats right now. And would you be interested in taking on that challenge? I said, you know what, I would, because I don't think people should just be able to step into this position and stay there unchallenged. We need to be able to have discourse so we make sure that we stay on the proper direction. And so that's how I kind of started running for assembly here. I was like, well, we need a challenger here. This is my district. I'm happy to do it.
And of course, again, Pulaski, Oswego City. But if you go into the Minetto Drive-In, Gail's not gonna.
Sorry, it's not me.
But just a reminder, talking Gail Tosh, she's running for the 120th Assembly District seat. And if you have a question for Gail and you live in that district, we'd love to hear from you. We're Facebook Live. We've got a couple of minutes to spend with Gail and learn about her and what she plans to do there. So What are some of the issues and concerns you're hearing?
Yeah, so I've been talking to voters since April, and I'm hearing three really clear messages. Number one, the high cost of health insurance and health care is just ruining the budgets of New York State families. Number two, with the loss of Nestle and Miller and a lot of the manufacturing places closing down, we don't have very much generational, long-term, meaningful employment in the 120th. And thirdly, the state of education in the 120th ranks second to last in the state, and I think that we can change that around.
How do you think you can do that if you're elected? What are the things that you would do to help to turn some of those issues around?
Well, sure. The first thing when it comes to health insurance and health care, I support the New York Health Act, which is a single payer, comprehensive plan for all residents in New York State. That's going to bring our costs lower for us and for our employers. The thing is, it's passed the Assembly, several times now, and I don't want to jump on and say I'm getting a free pass here, because it's been stalled in the Senate, and we have a chance of getting it passed in the Senate. But if it doesn't pass, I plan on lobbying those senators and finding out who can we flip, and if not, let's find someone to run against them who's going to bring us the New York Health Act.
What about education? What are your concerns here?
Yeah, so the concerns with education, the state of New York owes the State Department of Education quite a bit of money. I think the last time I saw a figure on that, it was $1.3 billion. So
now, where's that money coming from?
Well, it's been legislated and budgeted, so I assume we've already taxed for it. So then where is the money? Why hasn't it been delivered? Who's got control of that money, and where is it in the pipeline? Because that's the first thing we need to do to get our education system back on track, is to properly fund it. The second thing we need to do is realize that our teachers are in school to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. But as society and as parents, we ask our schools to teach our kids a lot more. We want them to teach our kids social interaction. We want them to teach them ways to get through their behavioral issues. We want them to help with the mental health issues. And I don't know a teacher who doesn't know at least 5 families that need social work intervention in the home, and teachers are not empowered to take care of that themselves. Let's get the teachers the support that they need. Let's make sure that the schools have the professionals available to be able, because all of these things are important. Our children need these things in order to thrive. So let's make sure that we can give them to them. You
talked about meaningful employment and the loss of some pretty big industries in Oswego County. So what's on the table legislatively that can help support small business development? Or business development of any nature there?
Sure. Well, I'm concerned about putting people back to work long term in the 120th. Let's take a look at what the state's doing. By 2030, New York State wants to be 50% energy sufficient. So why can't we get on the ground floor in that in the 120th? We've got the nuclear power plants.
Right.
Now, one of them is scheduled to be shut down in 2029. Why? Let's keep that open. Let's do what we can.
Oh, really?
That's what I've heard. It may have changed the last time.
But you would lobby to keep it open.
I would lobby to keep it open, because closing a nuclear power plant costs tens of millions of dollars. It costs too much money. We need to keep it open. We need to keep people employed. We need to keep cheap energy coming out of those nuclear plants.
Why do we want to close it?
Well, I'm not sure why people have wanted to close it. Some people have said that there's an age issue, but I don't think it falls within the age where it really needs to come down. I think the nuclear plants are in good shape from everything I've read. I wouldn't mind coming to tour them. I've been trying to call someone there, so if you're watching, have me come in and talk to you, because I'd like to keep them open. And secondly, the future of employment in America right now is STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. I don't know what fits into that more than renewable energy. So let's upgrade our electrical grid, and let's be able to put, so that it can handle the loads of renewable energy. We can expand upon the wind generation that's going on in the area there. We can also investigate water and solar opportunities, because we have the resources to put our people back to work. We're not looking for a handout from the state. We've paid our taxes. We're looking for those taxes to come back in infrastructure upgrades so that we can go back to work.
You're going for a district that has a long-time incumbent. How do you think you can win?
Well, one thing that I know is when I when I do something for a very long time, I can get complacent. I can say, oh, I've done this forever. You know, I'm an old hand at this, but I'm not coming from that kind of mindset. I'm brand new at this. I'm motivated and I want to get something done. So I'm out there and I'm talking to the voters and I'm hearing clearly what the message is from those voters.
They certainly want change. Now, you're a Democrat, yes.
Yes.
But on one particular issue, you may have some differences. What is that issue?
Well, I am a gun owner, you know, and I'm not saying no Democrats are gun owners, but definitely in the 120th, first of all, Democrats are at a 2-to-1 disadvantage, and there's a lot of hunting and gun ownership in the 120th, and people who are not Democrats always fear that Democrats want to take our guns away. Well, I don't want to take anyone's gun away. You know, first of all, hunting is a way that a lot of people help feed their families in the 120th. I wouldn't want to limit that availability or tell people, I don't want you to be able to protect yourself. The only guns that I'm worried about that I don't think should be on the streets are the ones with high magazines and quick triggers that can kill way more people. And that's really what they are. They're war weapons of war. They're not hunting weapons.
Do you support the SAFE Act?
Do I support the SAFE Act? I do, and I think we can be safer, and that's really hard for me to say in this climate, and especially in the 120th. We have some of the best gun safety laws in the country in New York State, and we can be proud of that. And if we hold those gun safety laws up to other countries, we can see that these countries are really safer with their gun laws. My concern is that we find that path in the middle, you know, where we can keep our firearms for the things that we need them for self-protection and for hunting, and make sure that we're not using them when we're angry or upset, you know, because too often guns are turned to as a way to end an argument or to end the pain that we feel inside, and I don't think that's okay.
Well, you know, one of the conversations that's happening in some communities across the country is arming teachers. Do you think that that's something that is a solution?
Do you have any kids, George?
I have. I have 4.
Oh my goodness! Well, I have 2, but it seems like 4 sometimes. My 9-year-old, lovely child. He has ADHD, very hyperactive, very focused, very quick. He would find that gun within 2 minutes, and he would be like, "Look what I found!" Because you would think it was a great like game or something. So I think that putting guns in the schools is simply one step away from putting guns in the hands of children, and I think that's a very, very scary thing.
I tell you what, you don't have to be scared of Gail Tosh. You can ask a question right now. We're at Facebook Live here on Monday night. Any question you have for Gail. Gail is seeking the seat in the 120th Assembly District, and so if you live there, mostly Oswego County, a little bit of Jefferson and town of Lysander, which is, you know, very interesting. But yeah, there's a lot to cover here. And if you have a question, please ask the question now while you have some time. And if you don't get it in right now, Gail will answer it on the other side because we'll post this and it'll be there for you to see. You have had some very interesting background in business. You used to be a manager for a large pizza chain.
Yes. That
was before you went to Belarus.
Yes.
And a massage therapist as well?
Yes.
You got your hands in a lot of things.
Yes. That was a good one. That was funny.
So what is, because you had such varied careers, it gives you a real key into the variety of business interests in the district.
Sure, I know what it's like to work for a big corporation. I know what it's like to follow policy. I know what it's like to follow procedure. I learned how to train people, how to take inventory, how to really make a plan for success. And I've also taken that information and I've gone into business for myself as a massage therapist. And I was very successful as a massage therapist, and I loved it a lot. But my hands were in a lot of things, and my hands eventually got tired. Yeah, so it's hard to keep up with those kinds of physical jobs.
It seemed like you'd be a real hands-on legislator.
I think I would be.
They're just the hits just keep on coming. But right now, I learned that you're a chicken farmer. Tell me about this occupation.
Sure. So a few years ago, my wife and I bought a house in Baldwinsville, and she said, "I want to have chickens," and I said, "I want to have ducks," and she won. So now we're chicken farmers. We have throughout the year we carry 30 to 35 egg laying chickens, and in the summertime we'll do 200 to 300 meat chickens right now, which are different.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, eggs. People are always excited about coming and seeing our chickens because there's so many different varieties. They look so different. We have a lot with fluffy legs and feet now, so that's always a crowd pleaser. And the eggs that we have, they're all different colors. But we have pale blue, green, pale green, pink, brown, tan, spotted. You know, they come in all different varieties, and they're yummy. You know, you crack them open, you have a nice bright orange yolk.
Different than what we see.
Much different than what you see in the stores.
Mass produced.
Yeah, the yolk is going to be bigger, you know, and it's going to be brighter. It's going to be vibrant. You're just going to look at it and think that just looks healthier, and it is.
So if I'm in the supermarket and I don't get your eggs, am I going to get? What do you recommend? Just for the record.
If you're in the supermarket?
Yeah.
If you're in the supermarket and that's your only choice, I'm sorry, but you should buy the organic, whatever they have that's organic or cage-free.
That's what we should buy.
That's what you should buy.
Okay. Or if I'm out in Baldwinsville, get them from you.
That's right. Someone else that has a sign out front their door.
And I know this is not legislative, but I'm kind of interested in this. What's the difference between a meat chicken and the chicken for eggs?
Sure, the egg layer.
Right.
Well, sure.
Older or younger or what?
Well, we all like meat when it's tender. The most tender, the better. So meat chickens, they'll mature more quickly, and they're bred to be able to beef up faster, if you want to use that word. So about 7 or 8 weeks, you've got a fully formed broiler or a fryer. Yeah.
Really? Just that short period of time? That
short period of time. When an egg layer and a meat layer lay an egg, they're the same size, and the chicks will be the same size when they're born. But by the time this chick is a week old, it's more than twice the size of the egg layer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And
it just keeps growing. It's just bigger and bigger.
You learn something new every day. Gail Tosh is seeking the 120th Assembly seat in your area. So if you have a question, not only about if you live in the 120th, but also a question about state politics in general. We're Facebook Live here on a Monday night. You were going to say something.
No.
Oh,
I was agreeing with you, George.
All right. What do you see as the greatest challenge in the 120th? That's from Dan.
The greatest challenge in the 120th. 120th specifically, I would have to go with jobs because I'm getting a clear picture from talking. Dan, I must have talked to, if I haven't spoken to you specifically, I've spoken to 4,000 of your neighbors. And the top 3 issues are the high cost of health care, the lack of jobs at the 120th, and the state of education. So the one that really affects the 120th specifically would be the jobs issue.
There's so many, when I think about the resources there, is the Salmon River running your district?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I'm thinking about, so many natural resources there. I would think that there would be some great opportunities, especially with the abundance of water.
There are, and we also need to make sure when we're talking about this that we do it responsibly, because we also have a lot of wildlife areas there, a lot of forested areas. People in Redfield probably aren't as excited about the idea of bringing in alternative energy as the people in Fulton City. So there's a real delicate balancing act there. How can we make it work for everybody? Yeah,
and I guess that's the job. That's what you have to navigate because of the diversity and the breadth of the district.
Right, because there's so many different viewpoints. People in Redfield aren't so excited about it because they see their forest being taken away from them. But the people in Fulton are excited about it because they're seeing their electric bill go down. So you have to find the balancing act between the two.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because alternative sources of power, and that's why you, like you said, you wanted the nuclear plant to stay, and that obviously is not necessarily. I mean, is that in your control? Do you have a say?
I don't know that it's under my control. I think it's a privately owned business. but I think that there's lots of oversight, lots of governmental oversight that goes on with nuclear energy. And I have to say that nuclear energy, the thought of it is a lot different for me now than it was when I was a child. You know, when I was younger and in grade school and living near 3 Mile Island, and there was a little nervous hiccup there one time. It was a big problem, and people were worried about Chernobyl and nuclear powers and all that safe. But then when you really sit down and look at a map of how many nuclear generators there are out there, it blows your mind that there's so many and that they've been so safe over all these years.
Ashley wants to know, how will you lobby for state investment in education, including higher ed?
Sure. How will I lobby for that? Well, I'll find the people. I'm going to be a junior assembly person, so I'm going to have to find the people that I need to talk to first. But once I find them, I definitely plan on having conversations. I want to know, where is the money right now that needs to be in the State Department of Education fund, and I'm sure some of that is for higher education. So the first thing to do is to find out who's holding up that money and why, and work back from there to find out how to get it to the places where it needs to go. Thanks for your question.
You talked about a 2-to-1 enrollment disadvantage for Democrats. So how are you feeling about the race right now?
I feel good.
Despite that enrollment
Despite
disadvantage.
that enrollment disadvantage, because I'm out there on the street. I'm out there talking to people, and I'm talking not just to Democrats, because Democrats are probably going to get to the polls anyway. I'm talking to independents. I'm talking to unaffiliated voters, and I'm talking to some Republicans. It really depends on who opens the door. And 90% of the people want to talk to me. Even if they're a Republican, they want to know what I have to say. And my message is coming across strong, and I'm being received well. So I feel really confident. I feel really positive. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to, right? I mean, I don't feel good at all, no. But, you know, and Ashley brings up another question, which is about, you look at your district. I mean, gerrymandering, and how might you have a voice in that?
Well, whenever you're on top of somebody else, you always want to make your vision heard or whatever. But this is something that's more important than winning or losing. When we're creating districts, we need to make sure that we're creating districts where people have that makes sense, number one, because either they're a homogenous population or it geographically makes sense. We also need to make sure that there's, well, I don't know that we need to make sure that there's good competition available, but there needs to be fairness, is what I'm trying to get at. And I don't think that the districts have been drawn for fairness. And if you take a look at a national map, it's not just a problem here in New York or here in the 120th. It's a problem all over the country. We should have a bipartisan committee that draws maps that make sense.
We have just a few minutes left. I'm reminding you that you get a chance to ask your question of Gail Tosh live here on Facebook. Gail, I'm getting ready to give a phone number. There's no phone number. You just type your question in. Type your question in. And Gail, what's your website, by the way?
Sure, it's www.gailtoshforassembly.com. You can leave me a message there. You can sign up to volunteer there. You can read all about me and decide to give me a donation. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be helpful, right?
That would be great.
Let me ask you about, so I just got an alert on my phone about the administration announcing some new rules on refugee resettlement. I know that that's an issue that you're concerned about. I understand you had a town meeting not too long ago that you attended that wasn't part of. Did you hosted something in your community?
Sure. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I moved back to the United States, I started volunteering with a couple different organizations here with refugee resettlement, teaching English to the refugees. And my wife works in refugee resettlement. She's an employee specialist. So that's how I kind of got involved in the whole issue of how can we help our refugees, because it's really important for me, being in another country, knowing that if you don't know the language, you really can't integrate and take advantage of what's there for you.
Right.
So what was the question?
Tell me, you talked about last year you hosted a
Sure.
refugee meet and greet, and I was basically saying this is an issue that I understand is important to you.
Sure it is, because a lot of times people say they don't know a refugee, or my community is fairly homogenous in the way that we look and so forth, unless you dig deeper, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to give the people in my community the opportunity to meet people different from themselves, who had come from, something that is confusing in the news these days, and hear the stories directly from the source about what happened. It was powerful. These people had some fantastic stories. I was really proud of them for coming out and sharing, and a lot of the townspeople that were there had some really good questions.
You're involved in the Duck Race to End Racism.
Yes.
Talk about your efforts there.
Sure. So that's run by Gwen Sanders, and she works at the same place my wife does, Interfaith Works of Central New York. And every year we volunteer there. We go, we do different activities, but it's such a great activity, and it's such a great community-wide response from people who come down and get these ducks and do the race. It's really fantastic. There's so much diversity there. You'll hear different languages. You'll see so many different clothes, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm involved. I'm full disclosure. I'm usually hosting that event every year, except when it falls on my birthday. But you also involved in radio, I understand?
A long time ago, yes. I was a volunteer radio DJ for community radio up in Syracuse, up on the hill.
Yeah.
Up on Westcott Street.
So what were you talking about?
I didn't actually talk. I didn't have a talk show.
What?
I was a DJ, but I wanted to showcase women music, women performers, and those types of things. So that's what I did on my show. Very, very few times did I commentate on anything.
Trish has a question for you.
Sure.
She wants to know how you will interact with the public after elected. She says that she's never met or seen your opponent in the district.
Great question. Thanks for your question, Trish. So I will be available through my website. I'll be available through my phone, the phone that the state gives. But besides that, I plan on making it out to lots of community events. I would like to host some town halls if people are interested in those types of
Even on the Tug Hill.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. So, yeah, I understand the district is not set up for a Democrat. So when I have a town hall, there's going to be a lot of people there going, hey, I don't agree with you. But that's part of government, and the diversity is what makes our country work. If we're all the same, we're not going to come up with the best answers. It's really important that we embrace the differences around us and find the commonalities so that we can move forward as a strong community.
I always ask legislators, people who are running for statewide office, about the impact of taxes in our community and in our district. How will you deal with the issue of what some people feel is high taxes here in New York? Sure.
So taxes is pretty high up there on people's radar. What are we going to do about it? First thing we need to do is we need to clean up the budget in Albany, because there's lots of double payments. There's all kinds of corruption that we hear about. There's money there and is being spent improperly. So we need to clean that up, because you can only go back to the tax base so many times before we just don't have any more money to pay. That's kind of where we're in with health insurance now. We don't have any more money to pay for health insurance, but we're still in that bind. So
yeah, and one of the questions obviously that comes up is how, as an upstate legislator, you will represent upstate's interest in a heavily tilted downstate assembly.
Sure, that's a big deal. So the best thing I would think that I would want to do is I'd want to partner with the assembly people in the area, and so that we had a large block here. And I know that the incumbent doesn't do that now. He doesn't join forces with people near him. We can join forces together and bring the services here that we need.
I think that's important. You're involved in what other organizations are you involved in the community?
In the community, I've been involved with Kindred Hearts, which is a dog transport activity organization. There we go. I think right now that's about what I'm doing.
Yeah. And do you hunt?
I'm looking for a mentor. I would like to hunt. Yes, that's why I bought my shotgun. So I can go out and hunt.
Gail, for people who, again, thinking about, or they're going to see this. Again, the number one reason why you think should vote for you for the 120th Assembly District seat.
Sure, I think you should vote for me because I'm out there talking to you and your neighbors, and I'm finding out what it is that's really important to you, and I'm taking that message, I'm hearing it, and I'm ready to go to Albany to make some changes.
One more quick thing. Someone wants to know Jennifer wants to know how you fight the rampant corruption in New York government.
All right, great question, Jennifer. Well, the way you do that is you start hunting it down. Where's it coming from? Where's the source? Where's the money coming from? How do we stop it? And I think that would be one of my top priorities. Thanks for your question.
All right, Gail. I think that just about does it.
That was awesome. Thanks so much, George.
Thank you, Gail. Good luck to you, Gail Tosh, seeking your vote for the 120th Assembly District. And Cheryl says she's not in the 120th, but she still supports you. So
thanks for your support. Thanks for watching, everyone.
And good luck to you, Gail. And I'm George Kilpatrick for the United Democrats of Onondaga County.